Welcome to the One More K podcast. We are on episode number 47. My name is Marcus, as you probably know. Good morning, Ned. Hello, Ned.
Marcus, we are on 47, and I've always thought that an ultra has to be 50K. It's technically more than a marathon, which is 42, but 43 is not an ultra. So 3 more episodes, and we are officially an ultra podcast.
That's very true. All the way to the 100 or the 1,000, who knows. And a special welcome to our special guest, Ryan Blair from Hong Kong. Good morning, Ryan.
Morning, guys. Great to be on. I feel a little bit silly that I'm not more familiar with One More K. I listened to my first 2 episodes yesterday, David Lloyd, and a bit on the UTMB with Sabrina. So thank you for bringing my attention to this podcast. You guys are doing some great stuff. I can see. I can't wait to listen to some more back episodes. And well, just curious, what is sort of the vision with when did it start, and what is the vision going forward?
So Marcus runs Lekker, which is a nutrition brand, as you know. The business angle of it is content is incredibly important today. So just telling people you have a product doesn't work. You got to create valuable content. So on the show, we never talk about Lekker, but we had this idea that there are a lot of trail running, ultra running shows. What is our angle? Number one, we're in Asia, and we didn't think there was much coverage. And number two, the business side. Marcus is an entrepreneur, has run funds. I've done startups. And I mean, Ryan, as we know, we first met 25, 30 years ago at Action Asia, where there was literally no business to be done in endurance, action, trail running. There was no money. But today, I think we're in the bubble, but we're at the zeitgeist of actual people actually making money in this sport. So that was the vision. Can we talk interestingly from an Asian angle about the business of it? Interview people. Of course, it's a bit about Lekker. And we just started it. And I'm happy to report when Marcus spent some time recently introspecting, he found that One More K came into his mind a lot, he told me. So it is a vision of something that we're going to carry on doing.
Very true. I think, Ned and I kept talking for the last few years every week about business, this, business, that, trend this, trend that. And I'm like, at some point, why don't we just record our conversation? I think the first 10 episodes were just you and I talking, Ned, and just chit-chatting about business trends and analyzing IPOs and analyzing public market and this athlete. And then at some point we got guests on board who also want to talk about business. And then we have guests and the audience saying, hey, we really enjoy actually the business side of this industry, because other podcasts cover the athletes, which is great. And we know all these great podcasts, but the industry is getting so big now that the money's coming in or not coming in and what's going on in the background. So we just started to record all of this, and it seems like there's an audience and people like you want to join and talk about the business side of trail running, ultra running. Which brings us to you, Ryan. I mean, you've been in this industry for a long time. So how does a guy from the West Coast, from America, come to Hong Kong and start the most successful racing team and trail running in Asia?
Long story. I guess you could say the Himalayas inspired a lot of it. Vietnam inspired a lot. Just to clarify, you guys are you both connected to Vietnam? What?
Yeah, I used to live there for 5 years. My business in Vietnam, and my wife's from Vietnam, so heavily invested in Vietnam for sure. Okay,
and then just to be clear too, the nutrition company is a partnership between the two of you?
No, that's a separate story. My own company. That's something else.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I try to make it short and sweet. Although I know it'll be difficult, but I came out at quite a young age to Southeast Asia. It was supposed to be just a couple-month thing. Actually, I was at university in California. I grew up in this incredible outdoor area of Central Oregon. 9 Cascade Mountains, 3 incredible rivers. It's an outdoor, mecca for athletes and just adventure enthusiasts in general. And I moved to California for university in the middle of the Silicon Valley. And that's when you grow up somewhere like that, you don't really realize it, of course, until you move away and you're like, oh my God. But I got an opportunity to come out for a couple months, like midway through my university days to Hong Kong. There was a really unique, this is like 92, and there is a really unique link up. My university, Santa Clara in California, had one of the few connections at that time with Hong Kong. I mean, there might have been literally like, I can almost count them on like probably two hands, the number of foreign students at Hong Kong University then. Now I think it's 10% or something of the student population. So anyways, it was like a couple month thing. And I spent my first kind of exploration getting out of Hong Kong. I went to southern China, to Yangzhou, and just got, completely blown away. Just, self-contained solo adventure up there, exploring the incredible limestone peaks. And there wasn't even a hotel there. Now, of course, it's the top climbing destination in all of mainland China, one of the top in Asia. And for tourism is just off the charts, just domestically and internationally. But yeah, I got a taste there. And then I figured it was supposed to be, the more I traveled, I was like, God, I can't just come out here for like a couple, 2 or 3 months and feel like I really experienced Asia in any, really more deeper, meaningful way. So I finagled a way to stay for the year. And I then, really, I like to say, changed my life was my second big trip was to Vietnam. And this is 92. I don't know how early, Ned, you got through there, but this is like, before the embargo was lifted, which was, I think, like 3 years later I think Clinton lifted it in 95. It was just a trickle of intrepid travelers. There was, at the time, just to even go there, I remember we had to get a visa. It was like you had to list 10 spots that you're going to go. You'd have to, every hotel register and with the government and have this. It was just but it was just wild. It was just, I traveled solo from Hanoi to Saigon without really a plan. Everything from hitchhiking to back of a motorbike to trains to local buses with chickens and pigs next to you. And yeah, I got totally hooked. So by the time I spent the rest of that year, I came back to Hong Kong. I ran out, funny story. I ended up in Thailand, ran out of money because the Vietnam trip got extended for so long. And I spent New Year's there too, and the Trang on the beach. Anyway, long story short, that year in Asia just completely blew me away and really changed my mindset and just my thirst for adventure travel. And I went back and I finishing universities, and then I was on a flight back to Asia less than 7 days of graduating from university, and more or less went straight to the Himalayas. Yeah, and then the Himalayas, of course, a year in the Himalayas, and then it became a reality. Well, if I want to stay in Asia, I need to pick a city, so whether it's going to be Hong Kong, Singapore, Taipei, KL, Shanghai, whatever. And Hong Kong, coming from such an incredible outdoor area, Hong Kong, I just fell in love with because, as you guys I'm sure know, it's one of the most special outdoor cities on the planet.
Isn't it, Ryan? Isn't it an incredible? Well, look, your story resonates so much because, like you came to Asia as a young man and was like, holy shit, Asia's amazing. And then Hong Kong in the 90s, it really did feel like that opportunity place. And I, like you was like, okay, I love the outdoors. It's a big city. And then you quickly realize, wow, Hong Kong outdoors, the proximity to the city center is amazing. So when you got to Hong Kong, is that when you jumped straight into Action Asia? Did you get right into that outdoor business world as soon as you got to Hong Kong?
And I got a international business degree. So I was in business school. And so when I came to Asia, just having a passion for this, making stuff happen. And I naturally got involved with some, different events and whatnot. And I was involved with organizing the first pro skateboard exhibition in Hong Kong in 97 in Hong Kong. But this skateboard event was a bit bigger. That probably was a little bit of a springboard into the outdoor side. Extreme sports and outdoor sports and all this was always my passion. And Hong Kong's young kids were getting arrested for just skateboarding. And so I managed to tie up with Vans. I built the first skate park in Hong Kong. And this is 97, 98. And it really got some good, nice media attention. And like I said, Vans got involved, the leading brand in skateboarding. And we ended up flying out to Hong Kong. Two of the top pros in the world at the time, Samanaga was one of he's like a Tony Hawk level legend of that era for street skating more than ramp. And We got him out here, and anyways, so after that event, I ended up partnering with the founder of the magazine, and this is my little surprise to you, Ned. Look what I found. But basically, this is the '92 first edition of Action Asia magazine. It was way ahead of its time in terms of an outdoor, publication or anything in the media space that was catering to those that wanted to hear about, adventures in Asia, right? And it was. Yeah, and it was like a directory almost. It's a real thick one. It was like, I think, a quarterly when it started. Then it went to a monthly. I mean, what would remind you? What year did you join?
So, Ryan, thank you, man. That's incredible to see the first one, dude. That's so cool. I joined.
And
I joined in '93. I was there '93 and '94. Gordon Oldham was there, Robert Houston. And I tell you what, you're right. We were way ahead, mountain biking, surfing, diving. But you know what they did that was kind of wrong? They would hire dudes like me and Kevin Rabowitz. I don't know if you remember Kevin, and a guy, I forgot his name, but he was just known as the dude. And whenever the swell was up or the weather was good, we'd all punk off work and go and ride and run and surf and not do our work. But I was there selling adverts in the early days. And that's when the first Action Asia event started. I remember they did the first, I raced the first one, Ryan. It was from the peak going down into, I don't know if you organized or you were part of that or you raced it, but I was part of that very first Action Asia event.
Amazing. So we definitely, what year did you stay on until, just so I know if we were in the
93 to maybe 95, 18 months. So mid 93 to end of 94.
Okay. So you joined the races after you left Action Asia, but we're still working in Hong Kong and yeah. So, you'll enjoy this, Ned, the story. So basically I ended up partnering in 98 after that skateboard event, and some other, stuff I was involved with in the event side. I ended up, partnering with the founder of the magazine, who you just mentioned, Gordon Oldham, who was a successful lawyer in Hong Kong, and basically set up a separate company that really was Action Asia Events. And there was a third person as well, a Kiwi, Russell is the name, from New Zealand. He stayed with us just for the first, I think, 2 races, and then he moved back to New Zealand. So it just became Gordon and I. That was the start of Action Asia Events. That was 98. The first race, of course, was on the peak, like you said. I'm so happy you did that first event. So I was race director of the first. You can blame me if you had a
Ryan. Sorry to interrupt, man, but unbelievably, Ryan, you guys made a video of it, and I have the VHS tape of it, and I still have it. And because it was put on the news station, and at one point I was in like 4th or 5th. Do you remember that Scandinavian guy, Chris Feldjard, I think, and his wife, Jackie Feldjard.
Of course.
They won.
Good friends. Good friends. No, absolutely. And from a business story, you'll love this, because as you recall, in 98, 98, of course, was one of the significant crashes with the markets. And it was a little mini recession going on, and here we were trying to introduce a new sport. This Marcus, this is the sport of adventure racing that we were trying to introduce. That time, trail running was really unheard of, super small. Adventure racing was the flavor, was the industry, so to speak. It was super hot. Eco Challenge was on Discovery Channel, multi-million-dollar production. The Raid had out of France and Europe. So these. In the event space for outdoor adventure racing was where it was at. And so we were trying to bring this new sport to Asia, a sport nobody had heard of, very niche, obviously, but we're trying to sell it as from the PR media side. But knocking on doors, we were looking for $100,000 in title sponsorship, which you think, like 25 years ago, and even in today, an event, to get that kind of level of sponsorship would not be easy. And because one of the main reasons we wanted to to get that level of money because we wanted to make a highlight video. We hired Transworld Productions, which that 30-minute highlight you mentioned, that was the TV arm of IMG at the time. And we had them all lined up to be our production company. And it was funny, I never had so many doors slammed in my face. My main job was trying to find that title sponsor and pounding the pavement, knocking on doors. And I'll never forget, I literally was like, who is spending money? Who is even thinking about spending money right now? And I said, and I'm flipping through the channels, and sure enough, Samsung, Olympic sponsor. They had just launched that AnyCall mobile phone. Remember Samsung AnyCall? And they had $100,000 parked away. And you might remember we had a charity element to the whole challenge. We're trying to raise money to spend, through the race. We wanted everybody to donate, kind of like Trail Walker, where then we'd use it on some underprivileged youth activities. And they liked that whole component. They had some money parked that could be something charitable related, but also could help for brand awareness of this new phone they were launching. They were just getting into mobile phones, and bam, we got $100,000 check from Samsung, and it became the Samsung Action Asia Challenge, the first one.
It was, and just to, we should get to present day and trail running. But do you remember who were the biggest sponsor? Do you remember who the biggest sponsor in China was? It was the cigarette company Mild 7, and it was. Oh yeah, that's how kind of early it was. Is that an endurance sport activity was sponsored by Mild 7? So I can appreciate it, Ryan. Yep. You must have been looking everywhere for cash because God knows where it might come from.
Well, and lucky the media side was blowing up so much, and adventure racing was so such the big thing of the era. And there's few people I think around still in Asia in the outdoor space that are old enough to remember all this, but it was we were super lucky where our whole vision was to build a regional series around Asia, bring the sport, and really help develop outdoor adventure sports in Asia. And we were super lucky. About a year and a half into it, we got National Geographic Channel as our broadcast partner. And you might remember, I don't know if you did the race in Thailand or in Taiwan or in 2000. You did Taiwan. So we went the Philippines first, which was a big learning experience, but we then went regional, fully regional with a series in 2000, 2001. And that, whatever, the rest is kind of history. And
so as a young guy sitting here, I mean, I'm really just at awe listening to both of you veterans of the industry. Like, what are the key differences you see today in the industry to what's been happening 30 years ago? Like, what stands out? One or two key items?
Well, I mean, relating more to your podcast and your listeners and all that too, let's the segue into trail running. And really, all these, it's funny, back then, all these early pioneering adventure race organizers, and a lot of the countries we were going into, we had to work with local partners. So in Thailand and Malaysia and the Philippines and you name it. And, even like, there was trail running in those days was literally like three races. Trail Walker, of course, the original team race was super unique, but it really was a lot more hikers and people wanting to raise money for the charity. It wasn't, as on the top end of it wasn't like super competitive, as really a running race. But then you had Raleigh Mountain Marathon, which was, also super early in the game. That was, you carried a tent and your sleeping bag and everything, and is a 2-day race where you camp out halfway through, and really unique. And you navigate the whole course. It's kind of like half adventure race, half trail run, kind of, if for lack of a better whatever. And then you had the King of the Hills series with Keith Noyes, total pioneer. He had taken that over from a local Chinese guy, I believe. And he built that, but it was very, small series and all that. Later, all these race directors around Asia were realizing too, gosh, they are just doing it for passion to try to make any kind. Obviously we were able to go big with it. So we were in a position financially to also work. but to try to make it profitable, but for, in general, you can think about the logistics involved with kayaks, mountain bikes, the risk management, the safety management, rock climbing and rope skills involved in these races. I mean, adventure racing is so complicated. You're only going to get like maybe 300 runners, because more than that, you're just overwhelming the logistics of moving bikes and boats and everything. So trail running came along, and all you need is a pair of shoes and a backpack, and then the numbers are exploding because the barrier entry is so much lower, and all you need to do is have your own 2 feet. And so when that started to take off, so many of the you saw that Action Asia events, which I had left in 2002 to set up APA. We can talk about later. But basically, they started just focusing on really trail running races and adventure runs. The one of the pioneering guys in Thailand, Serge, he got into the Columbia series and doing trail running. Keith Noyes was doing he was a pioneer in adventure racing. Also, he was one of the first in China he was Taiwan and China. Keith organized some really cool in the early 2000s adventure races. And he ended up, basically I pitched with him to North Face the idea of doing the North Face 100 in Hong Kong. And then he ended up, being able to run with that, whole event and expand his trail running portfolio. And I mean, the list goes on and on. You go look around the region, and the whole industry then went into trail running. I mean, this all kind of ties into my team too. With, when I started the team in the beginning, the vision wasn't necessarily, this is going to be the first professional team in Asia, right? Because there wasn't enough money in it. It was a passion project. We wanted to get enough sponsorship, of course, to make it professionally run. But, little what I know, 10 years into it, I'd have like 5 athletes on wages, and literally several that are full-time professional trail runner athletes. But when we started, it all came out of our passion. I kind of went about it backwards. I was a race director who then became a serious athlete. Usually it's the other way around. You're an athlete for X number of years, you're getting older, and then you become an event organizer or race director or whatever. So we started the team in 2006. I mean, sorry to digress again, but it's kind of a funny story. But we were sponsored by Salomon at the time for that race in Europe. So here, Salomon was our early adventure racing team sponsor. But I mean, Salomon, that era, they had like one guy in all of Asia. I mean, it was just, they were so small, no resources. So I'd say Stuart and I knew that if we're going to do this seriously, we need to approach a brand, and we need to approach a brand at a global office brand level and say, listen, we're not just, this isn't just a Hong Kong thing. This is an Asia wide thing. And we want to build the first, really the best team in Asia, and really give local Asians a chance. And I took the concept to the North Face is one of the only brands big enough that actually had a global office in Hong Kong, which of course made sense. But that was, for Asia Pacific, focus. And they were big enough to where they would have a budget to consider this. And they had just signed on Keith Noyes' biggest race in China that year. So we're talking like 06, I think we're talking, was going to be the North Face Challenge or whatever it was called in southern China, in Guangxi, like a two-day event. And of course, I was at the time pitching North Face, their head of sales and marketing, and it was like, hey, listen, what a perfect opportunity. You guys are sponsoring this race in China. We'll go there. We're going to win this race. What a great way to start it off. And she was interested, but she's kind of dragging her feet, him and Han. She didn't sign the deal. I'm like, okay, we'll keep talking, I hope. Anyway, long story short, we went to that race. It was a team of 2. Stuart and I went. We had to, we won the race. Big Salomon logos across our chest, ruined their whole North Face podium and their whole, all the branding and then I came back, and it was just a matter of, I don't know how many days or a couple of weeks later, I signed the deal with North Face. We started a team. Stone Chang was our first, he's like the Michael Jordan of the sport, you can say, for trail running. He was our first Asian athlete we brought on board. We had a girl from Singapore who was an endurance sport legend down there, who was in the Singapore Navy as an underwater explosive expert. and then Wei Biao was our first mainland Chinese we brought on board, a leading adventure racer there. And anyways, a few others. And that was the start of it all. And then, of course, X number of years late, 10 years later is where when trail running took off, naturally the team more and more focused on the sport of trail running. And that was also opened up a lot more doors for trying to get more support for individual athletes as stars and leading trail runners in the region. And Stone was, of course, the trailblazer. I mean, still today, 3-time top 20 UTMB is I don't think any Chinese on earth, whether it's mainland Taiwanese, Hong Kong, overseas, has ever been 3-time top 20. Asians, maybe a Nepalese on the Asian side or in the early days of UTMB, but those days nobody heard of UTMB in Asia, and here Stone, was over there, and anyway, that guy, hopefully that kind of.
Yeah, I mean,
that's kind of how things evolved.
Impressive how you built this team and with such amazing athletes in the team. And when I look at the current team, of course, one stands out, which seems like a crown jewel, Sunmaya Buddha. She's been, crushing it the last few years. I mean, from just recently, she won the Saga Trail 100 kilometers, high by UTMB, I believe. Then Swiss Peaks, what a finish. Unfortunately, CCC was a bit tough for her, OCC. But so tell us more about Sunmaya and the story of getting a Nepalese runner into the team, and what's the plan with her?
Yeah, I mean, I could talk for hours with on so many of the athlete stories and their backgrounds, and before I talk about Sunmaya, I have to give a shout out to like Super J in Thailand. I mean, 10 years, number one athlete there. I think of a shout out to, because he now, as we speak, he was the one Asian more than any that I was my my adventure racing partner, who I really was trying to help groom to be who basically is and arguably without question the top all mountain adventure sport athlete in Asia today, hands down. When you talk mountain running, mountain bike, paddling, the whole package. But I have to give a shout out to Jay, because he literally, as we speak, is in Ecuador next week competing in the World Championships of Adventure Racing. We've hooked him up with the South American champions, because you need a team of 4. And these are the Brazilian incredible team that I used to invite to come out as guests on our team here. But anyways, Jay was 4th place at the World Championships a year ago, and he very much has the opportunity. It would be such a big story. I'd love for you to have him on if it happens. But he has the goal is to be the first Asian world champion in the sport of adventure racing, and the guy's got a real shot at it. With Jay falls in the same category. Stingray, of course, in the same category. Whereas the team started to evolve, and Sunmaya, as well. I really wanted to use the team as not just a way to open a door for race opportunities as an athlete or whatever, but really as life opportunities. I just love how sport can change people's lives. And it's so cool that a niche sport like trail running now is big enough to where it can also do this. So as things moved on, I became less focused on racing myself. I mean, my job was just to fight for these future and these current stars of the sport and try to get them as much support as they want. I mean, it's so much more about not just money to race and sponsorship support. It's a whole, it's the physiotherapy, it's professional training, it's life, a bit of life coaching, it's planning your whole year. It's so many different things that go into trying to help an athlete. You can't just, you're sponsored, go win stuff. No, I mean, God, and Sunmaya's been it's just been a total roller coaster for her. I mean, I literally have I have physios in 3 different countries involved on a WhatsApp group chat being able to advise her at different crisis moments over the last two years when
but
she's had it, you know,
also to say, Ryan, like, you may be too humble to say it. In the early years, it was you putting your hands in your pocket to make this happen, right? Because this, as you said, the roller coaster, you know, we come from an era where there was no money. You did well to get amazingly at 100 grand. But even in the last few years, getting whether it's Super J, Stone, but I think you'd mentioned particularly with Sunmaya, yes, she's got sponsors now, but you had to put not just the effort, but the financial resources to make this happen, right?
Yeah, I mean, and luckily I've done well enough in other areas of the outdoor, you know, industry where I could do that. But yeah, you're right. You know, but it's been such a pleasure to help these athletes. And we can talk a little bit later on the UTMB stuff a bit more. That's a big thing for me, is fighting for these athletes that come from Asia for prize money and stuff. And maybe we can get into that after. But to come back to your question on Sunmaya, I mean, God, what a story. She's, you know, here she grows up in a house first of all, she comes from one of the most remote areas of Nepal. Everybody knows that, you know, the economic living standard in Nepal obviously is not high. And, I mean, not to say that's incredibly rich country in terms of culture, in terms of in so many other ways, but financially it's very hard, and economically these remote areas struggle. But where she comes from is like something like half of the national average of GDP. So imagine it's the sort of the lowest of the lower of Nepal. It's far, you know, northwest, Jumla region, and, you know, a challenging area. And it's a Hindu. It's a Hindu traditional area where there's a real strong history of women having very little choice in their lives, what they can do. I mean, her mom was basically, I mean, for lack of a better word, more or less kidnapped at age 12 by another village family to become a bride. And her sister's age 14. And if it's somebody, especially if it's from a different village, if their economic status is a little bit higher or their caste, as a family, you cannot say no. I mean, so like, imagine she basically watched her 3 or 4 older sisters. She watched as a young girl, them being taken away out of the house at age 14, basically locked up. And so they couldn't run away from this because they're totally unhappy, didn't want to be in this new family, this arranged marriage situation. And then when they try to break out and run home, their own father would beat them up, because it's an insult to him. They haven't accepted this change. And I mean, so it's not in a malicious way. It's just this is ingrained culture. And so Sunmaya grows up witnessing this. I mean, imagine, no wonder she wanted to run out of this and literally. And so she was lucky enough, though. I think there's one older brother. I think it's 4 sisters ahead of her. Should be 8 of them. So I think she was number 5 of siblings, and she was the first one that had a chance to go to the small local village school. And literally with her first, you know, school bag was a rice sack her father sewed for her, and she just loved it, you know, and she just wanted to just, as much as she can, take hold of that opportunity, and was competitive and studied. But then she got the chance, you know, women in Nepal, there's sports, obviously, it's very little opportunity, you know, in general. But once a year, there was a school race where all the kids would come out and they get to have, like, you know, around a dirt track or whatever, have a school day, and the girls could also take part. Anyway, long story short, she'd do this once a year race. She, like, I think the first one she was second. The next year she won. She was winning. And she was, like, obviously felt really confident. She loved it. And so, again, just total stroke of luck. In this town, like a 1-day hike away or a half-day walk away, is a bigger town. She's in this remote village. Imagine, up this valley, the last village before you're going to a over 6,000 meter mountain. You can just picture it, right? It's this pristine river running through it. And she's the last village. So it's for her to hike out of there she could get to this bigger town in like a half day that's called Jumla, and that's where the small little airplane can reach, and where the bus could come in if you wanted to connect. But I mean, if you want to go by bus to Kathmandu or something, you're talking days and days. If you want to get to there from Kathmandu, you're talking like 2 little small airplanes. The second one, you're going over these mountains, like the belly touching the trees, and like, like I was there. We're doing a life story film production, on her, or something we're working on as the ongoing project. Anyways, there just happened to be one of the first Olympians in Nepal happened to be from this Jumla town. And he had set up this really cool, like kind of, charity running club, where he was trying to support local runners in the region. He competed in, like, we're talking like, Barcelona. So in the early 90s, Olympic, marathoner. He was, competed in the Asia Games. I think he was 3rd in the Asian Games one year. His name's Harry, total legend. He's in his like 60s now. Anyways, he set up this local sports charity school. Sunmaya had heard of it, and she not like she was chained up or something, but she ran away to basically meet him and say, Harry, can I please, I don't have any money, but can I please join your sports school? She'd seen some other local girls, what they'd been involved in. She admired him as the coach, and he not only said yes, he took her into his home for like 2 or 3 years with his wife, and they helped her in so many ways. And that was the start of her having regular training and running. But the whole thing was geared towards 5K, 10K, like road races and those kind of events, not really trail running. But naturally, they're in the mountains at 2,400 meters. They're running trails and stuff too. It's a wild area. I'm like chapter 4 or 5 along the way in helping Sunmaya. Many other people, starting with Harry, another guy, Richard Bull in Nepal, a race organizer. He was instrumental in getting Sunmaya overseas to race for her first overseas experience, raising money locally, and he got her in a first trail race. But she never had like a team around her. She never had, I'm really surprised Solomon didn't step in, because they were sponsoring Mirai. And Mira was the inspiration for Sunmaya also, because here's a woman who actually had made it in trail running. And so what a great role model. And Mira also tried to help some stuff, but for whatever reason, Solomon never, they did some, I think they did some piecemeal, like one-off support, like for one race or something or whatever. But anyway, long story short, many people helped her. A guy named Pavel, you might remember Pav. He was instrumental in China on the whole race scene. He's fluent in Chinese. He basically, during COVID, he knew I'd been looking for a new woman for the team. I mean, I was, not that I had to sign somebody, but I was, this is like 4 years ago. I was really keen to help a young woman with world-class potential, kind of like I was rebuilding the team essentially. Stingray was our new young athlete who, as you guys have seen, became quite a star and had success. And so I wanted to really help a woman, if there's somebody out there with world-class potential. And Pav said, Ryan, you gotta meet Sunmaya. But it was in the middle of COVID. I'd never signed an athlete without meeting them in person, of course, right? I mean, it's a big commitment. And like you say, Ned, a lot of it is the time commitment. You know what I mean? I mean, here I am. I have 5 or 6 different outdoor companies. For me, this has never been a profit motivated thing for me with the team. Yes, I got enough sponsorship to cover the team costs, to a lot of benefits. It's a great lifestyle that I enjoy, I have a passion for, but it never was like, I want to make profit into my pocket out of this. That never happened. And it still to this day is not the motive.
Just to ask on that, it is, while it's not the motive, it is great to see that it's possible for the athletes. I mean, you fought for them. And as you said, many other people. Look, Sunmaya obviously incredibly well. I love the videos at the aid stations when she comes in, you pack her stuff. But Sunmaya, and so this is just my perspective as somebody looking in, she looks so committed to this every single step of the way. Like you'd say that she's running away and she's coming from the last village in Nepal. From a spectator point of view, Sunmaya she has never got her foot off the gas. Like I've never seen her kind of lolling around or waiting to get in and she looked that race that she had in China 4 or 5 months ago when she sprinted against Fujiao. Oh my God. So is Sunmaya, because to me, she looks like this is full gas, full commitment, more than anyone else. Is that a true representation of her?
Well, here's the deal. I mean, I've worked with so many Asian athletes over the last, the team was 18 years and I ended the official team, last January, or on the end of last year, which we can talk about. But, so I worked with so many athletes in those 18 years very closely, obviously, and on all levels. And the reality is, they're the ones that really excelled and really took the opportunity that was presented to them with the team were those that, number one, discipline, like that are willing. And she's so disciplined. She's no excuses. And that, I mean, another person to shout out, I mean, of course, Stone, off the charts. I mean, imagine Stone. He's a full-time paramedic still, and he's competing all over the world. Top 10 world tour in those early years. And here he is and at one point he was on the back, having to spend 8 or 10 hours a day on a motorbike as an ambulance first responder. I mean, talk about a horrible way to recover, sitting on a bike but so motivated, so disciplined. Chung, here he is. Chung was a full-time fireman for a while. He became a full-time pro, several years ago. But I mean, there were times when he would be at the fire station running laps in circles to get his mileage in because he couldn't leave the station. And he's that committed. And you saw what he did at, top 10 UTMB 2 times. And so these athletes are the ones that have off the charts discipline. They recognize, they're smart too. They recognize the opportunity, the chance. And then there is something of that extra, whatever you want to call it, special inside character, inside drive, that grit, that ability to dig so deep when the wall is stacked against you, when it's the most painful, difficult moments. There's some athletes that just naturally are a bit softer, don't have that. These are the athletes that can shut down a race at the last stage, fighting with 8 hours, Sunmaya, 8 hours fighting with the number 2 ranked 100K runner in the world and fighting to a sprint finish and winning by 9 seconds. You can't teach that kind of shit, man. That's, you know what I mean? That's like, Sunmaya, CCC 2022, chasing down the current world champion in the sport, who's on record pace, chasing her down from 25 minutes back to close the gap to 2 minutes, to where the French world champion sees a headlight coming, looks at her watch, is just bewildered. I'm on record. She says it at the finish. I'm a record pace. How the hell is she catching me? And luckily she could hold Sunmaya off, but they both run the 2 fastest times in the history of the race. I mean, that kind of grit and level of digging deep, like I said, you don't teach that. That's, sure.
I feel like we could sit here for many more hours, actually.
I know, yeah.
It's really impressive. Taking one step back, and that's kind of my last question for now, unfortunately. But what would you improve in this industry if you could? If you have like a magical wand, what would you like to change on a global scale, regional scale, local scale in this industry of trail running?
Well, I mean, relating to my whole history of wanting to help Asian athletes and fight for them and all that and everything. I mean, a big part of my, I've been vocal about is this whole element of helping professionals be professionals. And it's so many event organizers, and UTMB were leading the way, and the UTMB is improving now, which is great to see, but we have to hold their feet to the fire. We have to continue to get to improve. Because we need UTMB. UTMB has so many great things about it, but at the same time, it's been very hypocritical and it's been very disrespectful to the elite athletes, and that, it's the most commercial race globally, and then you're having all these excuses of, but we want to keep the sport pure and not, they don't need prize money. And basically, total hypocrisy, but they were just relying on the fact that the top European runners and the top American runners, and now you can say the top mainland Chinese runners, they can get sponsorship contracts big enough to where it wasn't a deal breaker for those pros to get X amount of prize money to live, right? By going to by winning these big races. But for an Asian athlete, I'm sure it's the same for African runners, and for some other places in the world, even like some European, like smaller countries where you're just the star of that country. The sales aren't big enough for these brands where you can get a $100,000 contract for a year or whatever it is. Obviously, you don't need that big, in Asia, but to even get 20 grand or 30 grand or whatever, so for Asians, it's so important to also have a chance to win some prize money so you can be a professional, and that's what I've been fighting for. And I mean, UTMB had a lot of, other issues with just transparency. Until this year, you couldn't even find prize money listed on their website. You have to dig to like page 57 of like the manual to now that's changed. Now they put equal prize money up for, the three big races, the 50, the 100, the 100 mile. It really hit me. Like a couple of years ago, and when Thailand started to blow up, I know for a fact they forced the first year UTMB Thailand. It was more locally more locally driven. They had better or equal prize money to the World Championships. They forced Thailand to lower their prize money. In past years. It's like, are you kidding me? Because the government in Thailand's like, yeah, this is the biggest race in our country. Why wouldn't there be prize money for top athletes? And so, it's nice to see that is changing. I was also trying to get meeting Zach Miller and some of these other US pros, and hey, you guys got to speak up too. And it's so great. He finally made a big deal. Killian got involved. That created a lot more. They really needed to create the noise. I can only do so much, from Asia. And it's nice to see that things are, it's nice to see that's changing. It's nice to see, but again, like, it's not just UTMB, it's the World Championships. I've been very vocal with the top guy for trail running, at World Athletics, who, he's like, oh, you got to talk to Sebastian Coe, and you want, it's so funny. But I've been very vocal with them too. It's like, okay, think of World Athletics. They're now a partner. What an opportunity for them. They're a partner with four others, World Mountain Running, ITRA, IAU, to make a really bona fide World Championships. And they only put up 60 grand in prize money that has to be spread throughout the whole event. The best example is take race walking. Also, how big is the audience watching race walking? And they have I think their World Championships had like a 200,000 US, if I'm not mistaken, something like 200,000 US dollars supported by World Athletics. Wow. So these are the kind of things I've been. Come on, guys! This is an opportunity. Yeah.
Well, that's also why
lastly,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I'd say also the World Trail Majors. What a great idea for them to join together and have an alternative that's on this iconic scale. But they also need to have more prize money for elites. You can't have the biggest race in Hong Kong sponsored by the third largest outdoor brand or third largest sports brand in the world, Anta. How can Anta be sponsoring this event and there not be a prize purse for? For me, that reflects bad. That reflects bad on Anta, also.
Very true. Coming full circle is, we also have this One More Case show in order to highlight those conversations, because it is business after all, and business means money. And that's also why we had UTMB on the show, and several times by now, and we share those comments. We bring this Asian experience to those decision makers, and we want to, of course, change the industry in the world, but also in Asia for sure. Ryan, I'm truly sorry. This has been a good start to a long conversation. I feel like we're going to have you back on the show and we talk more, but great to hear about APA and what you've been done in Asia. I mean, I think you are, again, one of the OGs in this industry. So cool to see what you've been doing. And now you're focusing really on Sunmaya and other athletes. I think they are very happy to have you, and they're very grateful to have you, I'm sure. They speak all very highly of you, so that's very cool. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show for 1more K. And really, time is up, unfortunately. Our producers, which they don't exist, I'm just making it up right now, are saying we're gonna we have 1 hour of time. But yeah, thanks, Ryan. I really appreciate your time for coming to the 1more K show.
Super fun to connect with you guys. Ned, to reminisce on Action Asia days was awesome. And we can do part 2 whenever, when we can find our schedules to match. And we should talk about China and the 500 plus races going on there right now. And I mean, really exciting, the growth of the sport in obviously globally, but also in particular in Asia. And
for sure.
Yeah. Great to connect, guys. Thanks for.
Thank you. As the last part of the show, we have Ned's drop, which is basically Ned's poetry to reflect on trail running in a more artistic way, which helps us to reflect and also calm down a bit after a very exciting episode every time. So Ned, I'm handing over to your little drop of poetry and wisdom.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. And first of all, Ryan, it was great to connect one day. Yeah, we should go for a run and reminisce those names of Keith Noyes, and I actually raced with Philippe Giulio once. I raced with him. So all those, so we should reminisce. But this one, I know I talk about backyard. I talk about backyard a lot, but I wrote my little race report on my backyard, and I just thought I'd read it. This one is called Santa Claus. Santa Claus. I'm going to meet him. He is real. He lives in a backyard in Tennessee. My dream came true because I won a running race. Running is my thing. Well, not just my thing, but it's my thing. Backyard ultras are my thing within a thing. Maybe it's because I'm old, slow, less ego, more zen, but I think I can backyard all day. World team champs, Singapore team. I go in with dreams, belief, but also delusion. Joshua has gone 72 hours before. Me, only 28. But my plan is new. Each 6.7 1K loop, 1,000 milligrams sodium, 400 calories, 123 average heartbeat, 100 gram carbs, 54 minutes run, 6 minutes rest, 1.5 liters fluid, 1 crew, no distractions, no music, no phone, no thoughts. Only the now. Loop 1, LFG. Excited beyond belief, but calm. Every 6 hours, new shirt. Hawaii shirt for chill, donut shirt for calories, plaid shirt for work, and Marcus's Western State shirt for the win. I am last every loop. Don't think, don't rush, just be. I am me. Then there are 12 of us, then 8, then 6. Loop 25, there are 3. I see true will. Zoe is cooked. She walks. I pass her. I don't see Joshua. Have I won? Then Zoe and Joshua come back past me. She is in a world of pain. Backyard pain. The best pain. 3 of us in the corral for the start of loop 26. Zoe can't, truly. Joshua says, I've had enough. I look, bewildered. The king? He tells me to go. He says, I deserve it. I can't take it in. I'm going to win? Just 1 more loop and I win? I turn up the road. I burst into tears. And there it is, right there. That feeling. Wild. Me? Really? Too much? I run a loop. I come back to cheers, smiles, love. Can it really be that I get to win? Laz says the only loser is the winner, as I didn't find my limit. True that. But I won a chance to find my limit in his backyard in Tennessee. There, next year, with the world's 75 best backyarders I go. So thankful to all of you who made this possible. This was you, not me. Laz, I'm coming. Dreams are big, goals are high, smile is wide. Let's do this. Ned.
Thank you, Ned. Another backyard drop. Always good to hear those. Backyard is a growing industry. We're going to cover it soon more, so I'm excited to cover more backyard. But for now, Ryan, again, thanks so much for being on the One Backyard podcast. And everyone out there, thanks for listening, and speak to you soon. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.